Hello, this is a quick introduction to the MA module, The Churches and the Social Question in Britain, 1815 to 1900. So if you're thinking about doing this module, hopefully this little talk will help you to decide whether or not it's for you. I obviously wanted to write a module on the 19th century, and because the 19th century is so vast and there are so many things that I could have covered, so many angles that I could have taken, I wanted to have a pretty closely defined theme for this. And also I wanted to take something that I thought would be of relevant and current interest to people. And obviously social questions are still very much at the forefront of people's minds, and the church's involvement with social issues as well. So I thought, I was hoping that people would find it interesting to have a module that actually put some of the historical background on the church's involvement in social questions. And it is actually also, of course, a very good theme for opening up our understanding of the way in which the 19th century church develops, and also introducing us to some of the key thinkers from that period. And equally importantly, it is a topic which does show very clear change over the course of the 19th century. That was what I wanted to do as well, to take something where you can say that what Christians thought about social questions in 1890 was really very different from what they thought of in 1815, right at the end of the Napoleonic Wars. Historians have obviously had various views about the nature of the church's involvement with social questions. Has the church acted as an instrument of social control? Has it been at the forefront of social reform, or has it been a sort of instrument for social critique? So those sorts of historiographical questions are always kind of lurking around in the background. But the main focus is really to introduce you to some of the key thinkers over the course of this period. So I'll just run through what the units are about and tell you the kinds of people that you'll be reading if you choose to do this module. So we start off with what I've described as the Legacy of Malthus. That's Thomas Malthus, of course, who's pretty well known, I think, kind of international figure, known for his views on population expansion and economics. Perhaps not everyone realises that he was actually an Anglican clergyman as well. And it's really looking at, he is an 18th century figure really, but he dies in the early 19th century, but his influence is kind of beginning to happen in the early 19th century world. And I'm really interested in the first unit in looking at his legacy, and particularly looking at those churchmen who really latched on to Malthus's views about political economy, which is really, political economy, it's really just another word for economics actually. We would call it economics now, but they called it political economy. And the two that we look at particularly are J.B. Sumner, who it has been said kind of baptised the slightly more unpalatable hardline elements of Malthusian thought, and gave it a kind of evangelical gloss. Sumner actually became Archbishop of Canterbury, one of the earlier evangelical archbishops of Canterbury, so a very influential figure. And we look at one of his writings where he is really taking Malthusian ideas and exploring them further. And we also look at Thomas Chalmers, the Scottish Presbyterian, who tried to create, when he was moved to St John's in Glasgow, tried to create that as a model Christian community with a very thoroughly worked out sort of social system. It was an experiment which didn't actually work because Glasgow was of course a complex and expanding city already at that point. But Chalmers was regarded as a very significant figure within political economy and also has a huge impact in America. So we start with those two, and then in Unit 2 we move on to the 1840s, the Hungry Forties as they're often known. And some of those people who were associated with first wave Christian socialism, F.D. Maurice and also Charles Kingsley, who both of those characters were very involved in practical measures to ameliorate social problems. And we begin to see this shift actually from feeling that poverty is actually intrinsically the fault of the poor and that they shouldn't receive too much assistance, which was very much the Malthusian view, and that actually to help people who were in poverty was actually going to encourage the problem and make it worse. We see this sense that actually there is a need for kind of urgent action. So, people like Kingsley and Morris get very interested in sanitation and drains and things like that. It is actually a later theologian who says we because we believe in the incarnation, we believe in drains, but it's very much that kind of thought beginning to emerge, I think. And then, those two, Morris and Kingsley, are both really broad churchmen. But we also look at Lord Shaftesbury, great evangelical reformer, and his views on the condition of England question. Then moving on through the module, we look at the increasing interest that there is by the middle of the 19th century in Jesus as a social reformer. So the whole sort of lives of Jesus tradition, trying to understand more about Jesus' own context, which kind of fits with the developing interest in mapping Palestine with the Palestine Exploration Fund, which is, I think, founded around 1850. And that sense that, with enough archaeology and enough exploration, we can really find out about what Jesus was like. And also that sense of wanting to recreate him in certain ways, perhaps to create him as a sort of muscular Christian figure, which was what Kingsley wanted to do, or more relevantly for this module, to see him as a social reformer. So there we read the historian J.R. Seeley, Matthew Arnold, important 19th century intellectual, the son of Thomas Arnold, of course, and also Stuart Headlam. And then moving on further towards the end of the 19th century, but still looking with Anglicans, we look at the movement towards the university settlement movement, which is associated with Samuel and Henrietta Barnett particularly, who founded Toynbee Hall in the late 1880s. And their notion that what was needed actually was for young men and actually increasingly young women of the middle classes to go off and spend time in the East End of London or other similarly deprived areas and experience poverty at first hand, and also work with people trying to create educational opportunities and culture, really, just trying to make things better and more easy for people. So it's a kind of process of mutual education, I suppose. So we look at them, and we also look at Westcott, who was involved with mediations with the miners, amongst many other things. And then moving on into Unit 5 and Unit 6, we actually depart from the rather sort of heavily Anglican and Scottish Presbyterian tone that the module has thus far adopted. We look at Nonconformists in Unit 5. So Andrew Meehan's, who's known for his bitter cry of outcast London, which is one of the documents which really set people like W.T. Stead on their campaign for improvements in housing, campaigning against child prostitution, things of that sort. Hugh Price Hughes, with his particular take on Wesleyan Methodism, and also John Clifford the Baptist, who was a fully blown socialist actually, and had very ambitious projects. Well, so did Hughes, very ambitious projects which he worked out in London. I have a particular soft spot for John Clifford because he's local to Nottingham. And the same can be said of William Booth, actually, of course, the founder of the Salvation Army, who obviously is one of the best known late 19th century social reformers, and he too was born in Nottingham. Then moving on to Unit 6, we look at Roman Catholicism and the social gospel, focusing particularly on Cardinal Manning, who was the third Cardinal Archbishop of Westminster, and Leo XIII and his encyclical Rerum Novarum, which is of course still seen as important within Catholic social teaching. So there we are, 6 units, of which obviously the first 4 are the 20 credit version of the module, and the full 6 are the 30 credit version. So if you choose to do this module, I hope you'll find it of interest.